Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Earth, they called it, another backwater world in the outer rim of the galaxy. He had done this dance hundreds of times before across the vast expanse of space. His fleet of 200 warships hung in the darkness above the planet, like hungry predators waiting to feed. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding for over 3,000 years. They had conquered 847 star systems. They had brought order to chaos, civilization to primitive worlds, and structure to the lawless void between stars. This little planet would be number 848. "Sir, we are receiving multiple transmissions from the planet's surface," reported Commander Vexthi from the communication station. Her voice carried the usual mix of boredom and mild curiosity that came with routine conquest operations. "Let me guess," Kethavar said without turning around. "They want to negotiate. They promise to surrender if we spare their cities. They offer us resources and slaves in exchange for mercy." He had heard it all before from countless worlds. The pattern was always the same. "No, sir," Vexthi replied, her tone now carrying a note of confusion. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies. The same message over and over. It is quite short." Kethavar finally turned to face her. In his 2 centuries of military service, he could count on one hand the number of times a planet had surprised him during first contact. "Play it," he ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a clear, calm human voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is your only warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. We tried to be reasonable, that was it. No pleading. No offers of tribute. No desperate attempts to buy time. Just a simple warning delivered with the casual tone one might use to mention the weather." The bridge fell silent. Several junior officers exchanged glances. Commander Vexthi looked at her instruments as if they might be malfunctioning. "Sir," she said slowly, "they are also transmitting a set of coordinates. Deep space on the rim of the galaxy. System designation Hargoth Prime." Kethavar felt something he had not experienced in decades. Genuine curiosity. In his experience, primitive worlds responded to superior firepower with either terror or defiance. This was neither. This was something else entirely. "How many ships does this planet have?" he asked his tactical officer. "Long-range scans show approximately 30 vessels in orbit, sir. All appear to be civilian transports or mining ships. No military signatures detected. No orbital defense platforms. No energy shields protecting major population centers." Population? Approximately 8 billion sentients on the surface. Technology level appears to be early space age. They achieved faster-than-light travel perhaps 50 standard years ago. Kethavar nodded. Everything appeared normal except for that strange message. 8 billion people on a single planet, virtually defenseless, yet they had the audacity to issue warnings to the greatest military force in known space. "Sir," Commander Vexthi interrupted his thoughts, "should we proceed with standard conquest protocol?" The standard protocol was simple and effective. Position the fleet above major population centers. Demonstrate superior firepower by destroying a few military installations or empty cities. Wait for surrender. Accept tribute and establish planetary government under imperial oversight. Move on to the next system. But something about this felt different. That message had been too calm, too certain. And what was at those coordinates they had transmitted? "Launch a scout ship to investigate those coordinates," Kethavar ordered. "Fast courier class. Maximum speed. I want a full sensor sweep of that system and a report within 2 standard days." "Yes, sir. Shall we begin orbital bombardment while we wait?" Kethavar studied the peaceful blue world below. He could see the swirling white clouds, the brown and green continents, the glittering lights of cities on the night side. It looked so ordinary, so helpless. Yet something deep in his military instincts was telling him to be careful. "No. We wait for the scout report first. Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation. But hold all weapons. Let them see our power, but do not fire until I give the order." Over the next several hours, the human response continued to puzzle him. There were no panicked evacuations of cities. No military mobilization. No desperate diplomatic communications. The planet's few ships continued. Their normal operations, as if 200 Imperial warships had not just appeared in their sky. The only change was that every communication satellite around the planet began broadcasting that same message in sequence like a countdown. "This is your only warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." We tried to be reasonable. Kethvar found himself pacing the bridge. In his long career, he had seen worlds react to Imperial arrival in many ways. Some fought hopeless battles with primitive weapons. Others surrendered immediately and begged for mercy. A few tried to hide or evacuate their populations, but he had never seen a world that simply ignored him. "Sir, incoming transmission from Scoutship Talon's Edge," reported Vexthi. "They have reached the coordinates." On screen, the image of Captain Mordak appeared, his expression grim and troubled. Behind him, Kethvar could see his bridge crew working frantically at their stations. "Admiral, you need to see this. I am transmitting full sensor data now, but I need to tell you what we found." Captain Mordak paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "The coordinates lead to the former location of the Hargoth system." "Former location, sir. Explain." "The system is gone, Admiral. Not destroyed in the usual sense. It has been completely removed from spacetime. There is a perfect sphere of absolute void where 13 planets and a G-class star used to exist. Our sensors read it as empty space, but the gravitational effects of the missing mass are still there. The star was not blown up or collapsed into a black hole. It was simply deleted from reality." Kethvar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. "How long ago?" "Based on the dispersal patterns of the surrounding nebular gas, approximately 50 Earth Standard years ago. Sir, our historical databases show that the Hargoth were a spacefaring species that vanished without trace 5 decades past. They were expanding toward this region of space before they disappeared." The bridge was dead quiet except for the hum of ship systems. Kethvar looked at the main screen showing peaceful Earth below, then at the data streaming in from the scout ship. The energy readings were impossible. To remove an entire star system from existence would require power levels beyond anything in Imperial science. "Captain Mordak, return to the fleet immediately. Maximum burn." "Yes, sir." "Admiral, there is one more thing. We detected artificial structures in the void. Geometric patterns made from the debris. They form symbols in a language our computers do not recognize." After ending the transmission, Kethvar stood in silence for long minutes. His officers waited for orders that did not come. Finally, Commander Vexthi approached him. "Sir, your orders?" He looked at her, then at the planet below. 8 billion people living their normal lives while an Imperial fleet capable of reducing their world to ash hung overhead. Yet they had issued a warning, not a plea. They had shown him the fate of the last species that had threatened them. "Maintain position. Do not take any hostile action until further notice. I need to think." But even as he said it, Admiral Kethvar knew that everything he thought he understood about this simple conquest mission had just changed forever. Scoutship Talon's Edge arrived at the coordinates 47 hours after leaving Earth's solar system. Captain Mordak had pushed his engines to maximum burn, eager to investigate and return to the fleet. What he found would haunt his dreams for years to come. "Sensors are picking up massive gravitational anomalies, Captain," reported his science officer, Lieutenant Kaleth. Her voice carried a tremor of fear that was unusual for a veteran space explorer. "The readings do not match anything in our databases." On the main screen, space looked empty. Stars dotted the black void as they should, but their ship's instruments told a different story. There should have been a system here. 13 planets orbiting a yellow star according to their historical records. Now there was nothing but a perfectly spherical region of absolute nothingness. "Take us closer," Mordak ordered. "Full sensor sweep. I want to know what happened here." As they approached, the impossibility of what they were seeing became clear. The void was not natural. It was too perfect, too clean. Natural destruction left debris fields, radiation signatures, gravitational disturbances. This was something else entirely. "Captain, the gravitational field is still intact," reported the tactical officer. "Whatever mass was here before is still affecting local spacetime, but we cannot detect any matter. It is as if someone cut a sphere out of reality and left only the gravitational footprint behind." Mordak studied the readings with growing unease. He had served in the Imperial Navy for 60 years. He had seen planets cracked in half by tectonic weapons. He had witnessed stars collapse into artificial black holes. But this was beyond any technology he knew. "Sir, I am detecting artificial structures," called out the sensor operator. "They appear to be made from microscopic debris arranged in geometric patterns throughout the void." "Show me." The main screen flickered and displayed an enhanced image of the empty space. Floating in the darkness were intricate patterns made from what looked like dust and small rocks. But as the computer enhanced the image further, It became clear these were not random formations. They were symbols, letters, words written in space itself using the scattered remains of whatever had once existed here. Can we translate it? Mordak asked. No, sir. The language is unknown to our databases. But the mathematical precision of the formations suggests intelligence. Someone arranged this debris deliberately. Mordak felt a chill run down his spine. How long would it take to arrange patterns like this? Given the scale and precision, sir, thousands of years. Maybe millions, unless what? Unless whoever did this had the ability to manipulate matter at the subatomic level across interstellar distances. The bridge fell silent. That kind of technology was theoretical at best, even for the Empire's most advanced scientists. To actually use it would require energy levels comparable to multiple stellar outputs. Captain, Lieutenant Kyleth called from her station, I have been running the gravitational data through our historical archives. I found a match. She transferred her findings to the main screen. Ancient Imperial records appeared, stamped with classification codes from the deepest archives. The Hargoth system, 13 planets, 1 G-class star, inhabited by a species called the Hargoth. They were expanding toward the intergalactic regions approximately 50 Earth years ago. According to these records, they possessed advanced weapons technology and had conquered 17 nearby systems. What happened to them? They disappeared without trace 52 years ago. No distress signals, no wreckage found, no survivors. The Empire sent investigation fleets but found nothing. The systems they had conquered were empty. No signs of battle, no evidence of what happened to billions of sentients. Mordak absorbed this information while staring at the impossible void before them. What were the Hargoth's last known activities? They were sending scout fleets toward Earth, sir. The pieces began falling into place in Mordak's mind. A powerful alien species had been expanding toward human space 50 years ago. They had vanished completely. Now their entire home system existed only as a gravitational shadow and artistic debris patterns floating in empty space. Get me everything we have on human first contact, he ordered. Sir, humans achieved faster than light travel 53 years ago. First contact with galactic civilization occurred 51 years ago, when they began trading with outer rim worlds. The timeline matched perfectly. The Hargoth had disappeared 1 year after humans joined galactic society. The timing could not be coincidence. Sir, I am detecting something else, the sensor operator reported. There are similar void signatures throughout this region of space. Smaller ones. I count at least 12 other systems with the same gravitational anomalies. Show me. A star map appeared on screen with red markers indicating the locations. They formed a rough sphere around Earth, extending out roughly 50 light-years in all directions. Those are not Hargoth systems, Lieutenant Kyleth observed. According to the records, these were controlled by various other species. Pirates, raiders, slavers, some of the most violent cultures in this region of space. All gone? All gone, sir. The void signatures date from different time periods over the past 50 years. It appears someone has been systematically removing threats from this entire region of space. Captain Mordak stared at the display for long minutes. 13 separate species, all known for violence and expansion, all eliminated with technology that should not exist. And at the center of the cleared area sat one small blue planet, whose inhabitants had just issued a polite warning to the greatest military force in the known galaxy. Sir, incoming priority transmission from the fleet, his communications officer announced. Admiral Kethvar wants an immediate report. Before Mordak could respond, his tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge chatter. Captain, we have company. On the edge of sensor range, ships were appearing. Not Imperial vessels, but human craft. Small, simple-looking ships with no visible weapons or advanced technology. They materialized out of nothing as if they had been hiding in the empty space itself. How many? Mordak asked. Difficult to count, sir. They appear and disappear from sensors. At least 50, possibly more. They are not approaching or taking any aggressive action.
They seem to be
watching us. One of the human ships moved closer and transmitted a simple message in perfect galactic standard. You have seen enough. Time to go home. Mordak looked at his crew, then at the impossible void where an entire star system used to exist, then at the human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Set course for the fleet, he ordered. Maximum burn. And prepare a full report for Admiral Kethvar. As the Talon's edge turned away from the void, Captain Mordak could not shake the feeling that he had just looked into the face of something far more powerful than the Zephyrian Empire. The humans had not threatened them or attacked them. They had simply shown them what happened to those who became problems, and now his admiral was preparing to become exactly that kind of problem. The journey back to Earth seemed to take forever, even at maximum speed. When they finally arrived, Mordak found the fleet still holding position above the planet. But something had changed. Human ships were now visible throughout the system. Not many, perhaps 30 or 40 vessels, but they had not been there when he left. Captain Mordak reporting to Admiral Kethvar. He transmitted to the flagship. "Welcome back, Captain. Report to my ready room immediately. And bring all your sensor data." As his shuttle approached the massive Imperial dreadnought, Mordak wondered what the Admiral would do with the information he was about to receive. The smart move would be to withdraw immediately and report back to Imperial Command. But Admiral Kethvar had not become one of the Empire's most successful commanders by backing down from challenges. Looking at the peaceful blue planet below, surrounded by the most powerful fleet in Imperial space, Captain Mordak had a terrible feeling that the humans were about to demonstrate once again why it was unwise to threaten Earth. Admiral Kethvar stood in his ready room, staring at the holographic display showing the empty space where the Hargoth system used to exist. The sensor data from scout ship Talon's Edge painted an impossible picture. Entire civilizations erased from existence with technology that defied understanding. Captain Mordak sat across from him, having finished his detailed report. The younger officer looked shaken by what he had witnessed. "Your recommendation, Captain?" Kethvar asked. "Withdraw immediately, sir. Request reinforcements and specialists from Imperial Command. What we are dealing with here is beyond our current capabilities." It was sound military advice. Kethvar had built his career on careful planning and overwhelming force. But he also knew that the eyes of the Empire were upon him. High Command had sent him to conquer this system as part of the ongoing expansion program. To return empty-handed would be seen as weakness, possibly cowardice. His personal communicator chimed with an incoming message marked with the highest priority codes. High Command was calling. The image of Grand Admiral Thex Noth appeared on his private screen. Her ancient face bore the ceremonial scars of a dozen campaigns, and her eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had conquered half the galaxy. "Admiral Kethvar, I trust your mission proceeds smoothly. There have been complications, Grand Admiral." "Explain." Kethvar summarized the situation quickly and efficiently. The human warning, the destroyed systems, the impossible technology. As he spoke, Thex Noth's expression grew increasingly stern. "Admiral, are you telling me that a primitive species is threatening the Zephyrian Empire?" "I am telling you that this species may possess capabilities we do not understand. The Empire has faced unknown technologies before. We adapt, we overcome, we conquer. That is who we are." Thex Noth leaned forward. "You have 200 warships under your command, use them. The reputation of the Empire depends on your success." The connection ended before Kethvar could respond. He sat in silence for several minutes, weighing his options. Military wisdom suggested retreat and research. Political reality demanded conquest, sir. Captain Mordak prompted. "Prepare the fleet for orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers. Standard intimidation pattern." "Sir, with respect, I strongly advise against." "Your objection is noted, Captain. Return to your ship." After Mordak left, Kethvar remained alone with his thoughts. Perhaps the humans were bluffing. Perhaps the destruction of the Hargoth was the work of some other species. Perhaps his centuries of successful conquest had made him overly cautious. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethvar. Prepare for orbital bombardment. We will begin with surgical strikes against military installations, then move to population centers if necessary. These humans need to learn their place in the galactic order." Across the fleet, weapon systems powered up, targeting computers locked onto cities, military bases, and industrial centers. 200 warships prepared to demonstrate the overwhelming might of the Zephyrian Empire. "Fire," Kethvar ordered. Nothing happened. "I said fire," he repeated. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, confusion clear in his voice. "The systems are not responding. All weapons are showing green status, but they will not activate." Similar reports came in from across the fleet. Every ship was experiencing the same problem. Weapon systems that had functioned perfectly for decades suddenly refused to work. "Sir," Commander Vexthi reported from the bridge. "We are losing power to non-essential systems. Life support is stable, but everything else is shutting down." Cathavar rushed to the bridge to find his crew working frantically at their stations. The great warship that had been his home for 20 years was going dark around him. One by one, systems failed in perfect sequence. "Communications are down, sir. Navigation offline. Engines not responding, sir." "Every ship in the fleet is reporting the same problems," Vexthi said. "We are receiving emergency signals from across the flotilla. No one can explain what is happening." On the main screen, Earth continued to turn peacefully below them. The planet's cities glowed with normal light. Their few orbital installations continued regular operations. Nothing had changed on the surface, yet somehow every Imperial ship had been rendered helpless. "Sir, incoming transmission from the planet," the communications officer reported. "Audio only. Our video systems are still offline. Put it through." The same calm voice they had heard before filled the bridge. "Admiral Cathavar of the Zephyrian Empire. You were warned. We tried to be reasonable. Who are you?" Cathavar demanded. "How are you doing this?" "We are humans. We are doing this because you chose to ignore our warning. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your ships cannot leave. But you are not prisoners. You are students, and we are about to provide you with an education. This is impossible. No species has technology capable of— Admiral, please direct your attention to the third moon of your home system." Cathavar felt his blood freeze. The third moon of Zephyr Prime was home to 50 billion Imperial citizens. It served as the administrative center for their entire sector of space, processing trade and governance for hundreds of worlds. "How do you know about—" The transmission continued as if he had not spoken. "Your moon is currently in its normal orbit around your homeworld. We want to demonstrate something to you. Please observe." On every functional screen throughout the fleet, an image appeared. It showed the familiar green and silver surface of Zephyr's third moon, with its sprawling cities and orbital platforms. The timestamp showed current time. As they watched, the moon simply vanished from its orbit. A moment later, it reappeared in orbit around a completely different planet in a star system, hundreds of light years away. "The moon and all its inhabitants are perfectly safe," the human voice explained calmly. "We have provided them with a suitable planet to orbit, with the same gravitational characteristics as their original home." The transition was instantaneous. They experienced no trauma, no atmospheric disruption, no system failures. From their perspective, they simply looked up to find a different planet in their sky. Cathavar sank into his command chair. To move a moon instantly across interstellar distances with no harm to the population required power and precision beyond anything he could imagine. "Why?" he asked. "Because, Admiral, your empire has grown too large and too dangerous. You conquer without purpose, destroy without need, and spread fear throughout the galaxy. This ends now. You cannot stop the empire. We have millions of ships, billions of soldiers." "Admiral, while we have been talking, every Imperial fleet in known space has experienced the same system failures as your ships. Every weapon in your empire is currently offline. Every warship is dead in space. We could leave you this way permanently, but we prefer to give you a choice." The bridge fell completely silent. Even the hum of life support seemed muted. "What choice?" Cathavar asked. "Join us in building something better, or continue your path of conquest and discover what happened to the Hargoth. The Empire can become part of a peaceful confederation of worlds, contributing your strengths while abandoning your aggression. Or it can become another cautionary tale told by the species that survive you." Admiral Cathavar looked around his darkened bridge at officers who had served him loyally for decades. These were hardened military veterans who had conquered star systems and faced death without fear. Now they stared at their useless weapons and dead controls with expressions of pure awe. He thought of his emperor, proud and ancient, ruling an empire built on conquest and fear. He thought of the millions of ships now floating helplessly throughout Imperial space. He thought of the missing moon, relocated across the galaxy as casually as one might rearrange furniture. "We need time to consider your offer," he said finally. "Of course, your ship's systems will be restored in 1 hour. You may return to Imperial space or remain here for further discussion. But, Admiral?" "Yes?" "There will be no second demonstration." The transmission ended, leaving the fleet in darkness above the peaceful blue world. In the silence that followed, Cathavar began to understand that everything he thought he knew about power, about conquest, about the natural order of the galaxy, had just changed forever. An hour later, as promised, his ships came back to life. But Admiral Kethvar knew that nothing would ever be the same. The emergency session of the Imperial War Council took place 3 days after Admiral Kethvar's fleet returned to Zephyrian space. Representatives from across the Empire had gathered on the capital world, their faces bearing expressions of confusion and fear that had not been seen in centuries of conquest. Grand Admiral Thex Noth stood before the assembled military leaders, her ancient voice carrying across the vast council chamber. Reports have been coming in from every sector of Imperial space. The same phenomenon occurred everywhere simultaneously. Every weapon system failed. Every ship was rendered helpless. The aliens called themselves human. Fleet Admiral Korthek raised his hand. Grand Admiral, we have recovered communication logs from the incidents. The humans claim they have been intervening in galactic affairs for decades without our knowledge. They say they have been protecting other species from what they call cosmic threats. Protecting them from what? From us, Grand Admiral, and from others like us. A murmur of concern ran through the assembly. The idea that the Empire could be considered a threat requiring outside intervention was almost unthinkable. Admiral Kethvar stood to address the council. His experience at Earth had left him changed, more thoughtful than the confident conqueror who had departed weeks earlier. Grand Admiral, with your permission, I would like to share what we have learned about these humans. Thex Noth nodded curtly. Kethvar activated the holographic display system. Our intelligence division has been analyzing intercepted communications from across the galaxy. What we have discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about galactic politics. The first image showed a star map, with hundreds of marked systems. Each of these markers represents a species that has vanished from galactic records over the past century. We assumed they had destroyed themselves through war, natural disaster, or technological accident. We now believe we were wrong. He changed the display to show detailed records. The Vorthak hegemony disappeared 80 years ago after developing weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems. The Krextai Empire vanished 60 years ago, when they began experimenting with reality-altering technology. The Hargoth were eliminated 50 years ago during their expansion toward human space. What is your point, Admiral? Thex Noth demanded. The pattern, Grand Admiral. Each of these species was eliminated shortly after they became capable of threatening galactic stability. Someone has been watching, evaluating, and acting to prevent catastrophic events. Fleet Admiral Yexmori, a veteran of the Outer Rim campaigns, spoke up. Are you suggesting that humanity has been secretly policing the galaxy? Not just suggesting. We have proof. Kethvar changed the display again. This time it showed communication intercepts from dozens of different species across hundreds of worlds. These are distress calls, requests for help, desperate pleas for intervention. All directed toward Earth, all from the past century. The assembled admirals read the translations in silence. The Nexus plague spreads beyond our ability to contain. Only Earth has the knowledge to help us. The star in our system is becoming unstable. Human scientists are our only hope. Civil war tears our world apart. We beg humanity to mediate before we destroy ourselves. The ancient machines have awakened. Please, Earth must send help before they consume everything. And from each crisis, the same pattern emerged. Human ships would arrive quietly, solve the problem with technology that seemed impossible, and then leave without demanding tribute or territory. How long has this been going on? Asked Admiral Kethvar's former mentor, Fleet Admiral Bextar. According to these records, since humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. For over 50 years, they have been responding to threats across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors. Grand Admiral Thex Noth studied the data with growing unease. Why were we never informed of these interventions? Because they specifically hid them from us, Kethvar replied, and from any other large military power. They seem to have deliberately kept their activities secret from species they viewed as potentially problematic. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, masters of hundreds of worlds, had been operating under the watchful eye of a species they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Mordak, who had been present at the initial contact with Earth, stood to speak. Grand Admiral, there is more. Our scientists have been analyzing the technology used against our fleets. The energy levels required for their demonstrations exceed our entire Empire's power generation capacity by factors we cannot calculate. Explain. To disable every Imperial ship simultaneously across thousands of light-years of space requires faster-than-light communication and matter manipulation on a scale that should be impossible. To relocate Zephyr's third moon instantaneously across galactic distances, Mordak paused, searching for words. Our physicists say it would require the controlled output of multiple stellar cores. Fleet Admiral Korthek leaned forward. How did a species that achieved spaceflight only 50 years ago develop such capabilities? We do not think they did, replied Admiral Kethvar. Our Xenoarchaeology Division has been reviewing historical records. There are mentions of mysterious interventions dating back thousands of years, species saved from extinction by unknown benefactors, plagues that ended suddenly without explanation, wars that stopped when mediators appeared from nowhere. He changed the display to show ancient texts and archaeological records. The descriptions vary, but they all mention the same characteristics: advanced technology, peaceful intentions, and a complete disappearance once the crisis was resolved. We believe humanity has been active in galactic affairs far longer than their official first contact date suggests. Grand Admiral Thexnoth absorbed this information with the calculating mind that had built her career. What do you recommend, Admiral? I recommend we accept their offer of alliance. A storm of protests erupted from the assembled fleet commanders. The idea of the Empire accepting terms from any species was almost unthinkable. Kethvar raised his hand for silence. Consider the alternatives. We can continue our expansion and face the same fate as the Hargoth, or we can acknowledge that we have encountered something beyond our current understanding and learn from it. Fleet Admiral Bextar stood slowly. At over 400 years old, he was the most senior military officer in the Empire. Admiral Kethvar, you speak of alliance, but these humans have demonstrated the ability to destroy us at will. What kind of alliance is possible between a lion and a mouse? With respect, sir, we are the mice in this scenario. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. For the first time in Imperial history, a senior admiral had admitted that another species was superior to them. Grand Admiral Thexnoth considered the data, the reports, and the implications for long minutes. Finally, she spoke. Admiral Kethvar, you will return to Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a diplomat. Find out what they really want. Learn what they are willing to offer, and discover what they expect from us in return. Yes, Grand Admiral. And Admiral? Yes, ma'am. Find out how we can become more like them. If humanity has truly been protecting the galaxy for centuries while we have been conquering it, perhaps it is time we learned a better way. As the council session ended and the admirals dispersed to their various commands, a new understanding began to spread through the Imperial fleet. They had encountered something that challenged not just their military supremacy, but their entire worldview. For 3,000 years, the Empire had believed that strength meant conquest and power meant domination. Now they were being offered the chance to learn that true strength might lie in protection, and real power in the wisdom to use it responsibly. The question was whether an empire built on conquest could learn to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of subjugate, and to serve something greater than their own expansion. Admiral Kethvar prepared for his return journey to Earth, knowing that the fate of his civilization might depend on his ability to understand these remarkable humans and the galaxy-spanning responsibility they had quietly accepted. Admiral Kethvar's second journey to Earth was very different from his first. Instead of 200 warships, he brought only his flagship and a small escort. Instead of conquest, he came seeking understanding. The blue planet looked the same as before, peaceful and unguarded, but now he knew the truth about the power that protected it. As his ship approached Earth's orbital space, he was met by a single human vessel. It was smaller than his flagship, sleek and elegant where Imperial ships were massive and intimidating. No weapons were visible, but Kethvar no longer made the mistake of judging human capabilities by appearances. Admiral Kethvar, came the familiar calm voice over the communication system. Welcome back. I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Coordination. Please follow our ship to the station. What Kethvar saw next surprised him more than all the previous demonstrations of human power. The space station they approached was not hidden or heavily defended. It orbited Earth openly, clearly visible from the planet's surface. But it was not alone. Ships from hundreds of different species filled the surrounding space. Vessels he recognized from across the galaxy. representing civilizations he had thought were isolated or primitive. All of them seemed to be operating together with the easy coordination of long-established allies. "How long has this been here?" he asked Commander Chen as his shuttle docked with the station. "The Terran Coordination Station has been operating for 37 years, she replied. "Though in different forms, we have been facilitating galactic cooperation for much longer." The interior of the station was as surprising as its exterior. Instead of the sterile corridors of Imperial facilities, the human station was filled with gardens, open spaces, and artwork from dozens of different worlds. Representatives from species across the galaxy moved through the halls, working together on projects he could not begin to imagine. Commander Chen led him to a conference room where several humans waited along with beings from other species. Kethvar recognized a few of them: the Altarian ambassador, a high-ranking Vorthon scientist, and representatives from worlds he had assumed were too primitive for interstellar politics. "Admiral," Commander Chen began, "before we discuss the future of the Zephyrian Empire, we want you to understand what you are being invited to join." The wall of the conference room became a massive display showing the galaxy from an unprecedented perspective. Instead of the political boundaries and territory maps Kethvar was used to, this showed something else entirely. "This is the galaxy as we see it," explained Dr. Elizabeth Harding, a human xenobiologist. "Not as territories to be conquered, but as communities to be protected and supported." The display highlighted thousands of connections between worlds: trade routes, communication networks, research partnerships, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense agreements formed a web of cooperation that spanned the entire galaxy. "The Terran Protectorate is not an empire," Dr. Harding continued. "It is a voluntary association of civilizations committed to mutual support and peaceful development. Each member species maintains its independence while contributing to the common good." Admiral Kethvar studied the display with growing amazement. "How many species are part of this protectorate?" "Approximately 2,043 at current count," replied Ambassador Talak, a tall, graceful being from the Altarian Republic. "Though membership is always growing as more civilizations choose cooperation over competition." 2,000? Kethvar could barely comprehend the number. The Empire had conquered fewer than 1,000 worlds in 3 millennia of expansion. "How is such coordination possible?" Commander Chen smiled. "Would you like to see?" The display changed to show a crisis in progress. A star system on the galaxy's outer rim was experiencing a devastating plague that threatened to wipe out the entire population of 3 inhabited worlds. "This emergency alert went out 18 hours ago," Dr. Harding explained. "Watch what happened." The display showed the response in real time. Medical ships from a dozen different species converged on the system within hours. Research teams shared data instantaneously across thousands of light years. Resources and personnel flowed to where they were needed most without hesitation or bureaucratic delays. The cure was developed by a joint team of Altarian biologists, human epidemiologists, and Vorthon genetic engineers working together, Ambassador Talak noted. It was distributed and administered within 36 hours of the initial outbreak. 3 worlds, 12 billion people, saved because civilizations chose to work together instead of competing, Commander Chen added. Kethvar watched similar scenarios play out across the display. Natural disasters met with immediate aid from neighboring systems. Scientific breakthroughs shared freely among research communities. Conflicts resolved through mediation before they could escalate to violence. "This is what we are offering your empire," Dr. Harding said. "Not conquest or subjugation, but partnership in something greater than any single species could achieve alone." "What would be required of us?" "First, an end to expansion through conquest," Commander Chen replied. "The Empire's military would be restructured for defense and emergency response rather than offensive operations. Our fleets would be dismantled, converted. Many of your ships would make excellent rescue and transport vessels with modifications. Your military expertise would be invaluable for coordination and logistics in crisis response." Ambassador Talak leaned forward. "Admiral, I was once a fleet commander for the Altarian Republic. We were not as large as your empire, but we followed a similar path of expansion. When we joined the Protectorate 30 years ago, I thought my career was over. What happened? I discovered that protecting civilizations is far more challenging and rewarding than conquering them. I now coordinate disaster response for 17 sectors of space. My fleet saved more lives in a single year than they took in decades of territorial wars. Kethvar considered this. Everything he had been taught about military service centered around conquest and territorial expansion. The idea of using those same skills for protection and aid was almost revolutionary. What about our emperor? Our government? Political systems would remain largely unchanged, Dr. Harding explained. The Protectorate is not interested in ruling anyone. We provide coordination, support, and occasionally intervention when civilizations threaten galactic stability. But each member species governs itself. You mentioned intervention, like what you did to us. Commander Chen nodded seriously. That was an intervention, yes. The Empire had grown large enough to pose a threat to galactic peace. But it was also an invitation. We could have simply removed you from existence as we did with the Hargoth. Instead, we chose to offer you a chance to become part of the solution. The weight of that statement settled on Kethvar. These humans had the power to erase his entire civilization with apparently minimal effort. Instead, they had chosen to show mercy and offer partnership. Admiral, Ambassador Talak said quietly, I know this is difficult to accept. For a proud military civilization, the idea of joining rather than conquering seems like surrender. But I can tell you from experience that there is more honor in protecting the weak than in subjugating them. Kethvar stood and walked to the large windows overlooking Earth. The planet looked so peaceful, so ordinary. Yet from this unassuming world came the coordination that kept thousands of civilizations working together, the power that could relocate moons across interstellar distances, and the wisdom to choose protection over conquest. If we agree to this, he said finally, what guarantees do we have? How do we know humanity will not use their superior technology against us in the future? You have the same guarantee every member species has, Commander Chen replied. Our commitment to the principles of the Protectorate, and more practically the fact that destroying civilizations serves no useful purpose. We gain nothing by conquest that we cannot achieve more effectively through cooperation. Dr. Harding added, Admiral, humanity learned long ago that true security comes not from being stronger than everyone else, but from making sure everyone is strong enough to defend themselves and help their neighbors. Kethvar turned back to the assembled representatives. These beings from across the galaxy, working together with casual efficiency, represented everything the Empire had always claimed to be building through conquest. Yet they had achieved it through cooperation. I will need to report back to Imperial Command. This decision is beyond my authority. Of course, Commander Chen agreed. Take all the time you need. But Admiral, we hope you will help your leaders understand that this is not about submission or surrender. This is about joining something that makes every member stronger and safer than they could ever be alone. 6 months later, Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his converted flagship, now designated as a Protectorate emergency response vessel. His ship had been stripped of its heaviest weapons and fitted with medical facilities, rescue equipment, and humanitarian supplies. The emergency alert had come from a system deep in former Imperial space. A massive solar flare was threatening to sterilize 3 inhabited worlds. His task force of converted Imperial warships was working alongside vessels from a dozen other species to evacuate billions of people and establish temporary,